Okay, we're recording. Hello,
Okay.
everybody. We're here. I'm Neil Grover, and we're here with Dr. Paul Byer, a good friend of mine and a percussion luminary in his own right. Paul is the professor of percussion at Clemson University and is the author of, I know, at least three books, maybe more. The most notable one, my favorite one, is Working Towards Excellence, which I hope, Paul, you'll talk about. But I just wanted to have a chat with you, talk a little bit about, your background and your activities at Clemson, and then maybe get into some of your books. And I think people would really like to hear a lot about that. So why don't you tell
Certainly
us
glad to.
yourself?
Well, thanks for having me, Neil. This is a true honor. A little bit about my background. I did my undergraduate at Ball State University with Dr. Erwin Mueller, former timpanist with the Indianapolis Symphony. And he really took me under his wing, had a wonderful experience there. Went to graduate school at the University of Arizona with Gary Cook. I did my master's at Arizona and my doctorate. And taught high school in Garland, Texas for a couple of years as I was finishing my doctorate. That was a really great experience as an assistant band director and coordinator of percussion, and just started to get some experience in the classroom. And I've been to Clemson. This is my 21st year
Wow,
as director of
congratulations.
percussion. Thank you. It's
Cool.
just flown by
Yeah.
unbelievably fast, and I was hired to really build a percussion program. There was no percussion professor prior to my position being open at
None
the
at all.
time.
None
Not
at
at
all.
all.
Wow.
There was an adjunct who came in once in a while for some lessons here and there, but no percussion ensemble. The drum line was being run by the students, so you can imagine how that was going
Yeah.
at the time. And certainly no steel band or world music program. And it just wasn't really a very strong culture at the time, which is why they wanted to get somebody in there to build a program and make something special. So it's
You
been a
certainly.
true joy to do that.
That's great. How many students do you have in the percussion department?
I've got about 35 total, spanning all the ensembles. I've got about 12 taking lessons this semester, and that's about average per semester.
Hmm.
And there are several in the drumline, of course, the orchestra, the symphonic band, which is our top wind ensemble, jazz ensemble, percussion ensemble. We have two steel bands right now. And I also have an adjunct percussion instructor, Lainey Malden, who is a former student of mine. And she kind of takes my overload and the private students that I can't fit in to my studio.
Oh, cool. And do you have a graduate assistantship at the school?
We do now. We're strictly undergraduate at Clemson in the performing arts department.
Oh, cool, cool. Um, I did want to jump right in because whenever I'm speaking to other percussionists or musicians, I kind of like to key in on what makes you kind of unique and what what it is about you that stands out to me from my perspective.
Sure.
um, that your writing, the working towards excellence. When I read it, it really resonated with me because as a business person, there was as much information and much needed discussion in that book that I started thinking maybe this is applying to me more as a business person than as a percussionist,
Right.
even though it has values of percussionist. Could you talk a little bit about, what gave you the idea to write the book and the impetus and how it came about?
Absolutely. Thanks very much for reading it, first of all. And
Oh, right.
I'm glad you said that because, excellence is something that everybody can really relate to no matter what profession you're in. But the impetus really, many years ago, my percussion ensemble rehearsals were not going well at all. My students were apathetic. They were arriving late. They were not practicing. And they certainly were not working toward excellence at the time. And I talked to them about this as a group, individually, and really any progress we would make didn't stick. And it became a very frustrating semester for me and for them.
Mhm.
And we went out and gave our concert, and the concert really fell short. It was just it was pretty good. Certainly was not excellent. It was well below the standards that we kind of all agreed on. And after the concert, one of my students came up to me and said, Dr. Byer, I never want to feel that way again. And he was talking about his lack of confidence and his lack of preparation going into that concert. And that really bothered me. It really hit me hard. And I went home after the concert and just started to ask myself a lot of questions. Why did this happen? What put us in this position in the first place? And how was I going to prevent this from happening again? And I just started jotting down some things that were missing that semester for whatever reason. And it turned out to be the 8 values that I wrote about in the book. So we literally were not hungry. We didn't give very, very good efforts. We didn't value the process. We didn't have pride in the quality of what we were doing. We weren't consistent. We didn't have very good leadership from the students that year. We didn't value our time and didn't use our time very well. And we really didn't respond well to adversity and persevere very well. So we were really missing all 8 values that I ended up writing about in the book. And without that semester of just being pretty good and falling short, I would have never written it.
Well, how great that is that you
Yeah,
took a situation that was frustrating and upsetting and used it to as a springboard to write such a great piece that would help so many people.
thank you.
You mentioned hunger, and this is something no one talks about. And do you think that someone needs to be hungry um, in order to excel at something? That there needs to be a certain level of desire in terms of hunger?
I think absolutely. I think you have to want excellence, first of all, and you have to be willing to work for it, and you have to be eager to do whatever it takes. I write in the beginning of the book that if you don't want to achieve excellence, don't worry, you won't, because it's very difficult to do that if it's not something you're willing to sacrifice for and pursue. But it is a very intrinsic quality. It's hard to teach. It has to come from within somebody. And what I've tried to do with hunger was really give people more of a why they should be hungry rather than a how to be hungry. So to make a difference, to work toward excellence, to prove people wrong is a really powerful reason. People doubt you or don't think you have what it takes to succeed. That could be very motivating and give you a lot of hunger to prove them wrong. To land your dream job, to go to the graduate school that you always wanted to go to, because it's very competitive, and we all know that. And you have, like you said at the beginning, Neil, you have to stand out and figure out a way to separate yourself from the average. And one of those ways is to really go after something with a lot of drive and determination and desire. And again, it's hard to teach, but if someone has that, I think they're going to be very successful because they're not going to let anything stop them.
Yeah, you would think you wouldn't have to teach that, but we do. I remember Vic Firth, who I studied with, saying the very first lesson I had with him, he says, talent got you this far. From here on in, everybody's talented here. He said, it's going to be about perseverance. And
Absolutely.
he was right. And, a funny thing, if I could just relate a little story that applies, I think, to hunger. So a while back, I hired a young percussionist to handle the shipping receiving at our factory. And he was a student of a colleague of mine, and I thought I'd give him a shot. He was recommended, and so I gave him a shot. So it was one of the we had a real snowy day in Boston, and about 12 o'clock it was piling up, and I sent everybody home. Guys, get home, get out of here. And I went to the kid who was just hired. I said, look, UPS is coming at 4 o'clock. I called them. They're going to come. We have lots of deliveries to get out. I said, so I'm afraid you'll have to stay and you could leave as soon as they come. I said, but I'm going to stay also. So, I wouldn't ask you to do what I wouldn't do. So I'm going to stay. He turned to me, he said, well, if you're going to stay, do you mind if I leave? And I looked at him and I didn't say anything, but he did not last at all. I said, because if
Right.
the attitude should have been, hey, Neil, I want to prove to you I could do it. Go home and everything's going to be great. But he clearly didn't get it.
Yeah, it
Wasn't
sounds like you want to do the minimum for sure,
absolutely
and not go above and beyond and do what it took to succeed.
right.
And that was important to you as the owner, and he should have realized that and valued that, and helped you out.
Yeah, he didn't seize the opportunity. He had an opportunity. It's like walking into an audition and playing half committed to something,
Right,
not really trying. Why
right,
even go?
right.
Yeah, yeah, no. So that's great. Now, do you use the book with your students, or is it used in a course?
I do use actually both. So at Clemson, the drum line is one of the more popular percussion groups and ensembles that we have. We've won two out of the last three national championships, so the recruiting is going well, and a lot of the students kind of gravitate toward the marching percussion ensemble at first. And I have the students in their freshman year read my first book, Marching Bands and Drumlines, where they learn about excellence from seven other world-class college marching bands. And sophomore year, their second year, they read Working Toward Excellence.
I see.
So it's kind of their initiation or their way to be enculturized in the program
Hmm.
based on the research that I've done, and it really helps kind of offset what they're learning day to day in the drum
Right,
line.
right. And you speak at music education conventions about the book and the eight values, the core values, don't you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Spoken a lot of the music education conferences, PASIC a couple times for
Right,
the emerging leaders
right.
sessions, and a lot of things on campus for students and faculty. And the funny thing there is, even when I'm doing a faculty workshop, I talk about the students, but subtly, it's more about them as faculty members than it is about their students. And sometimes faculty have to work toward excellence and develop these values a little better than they are.
Sure. And I would imagine if you're on the faculty or in a job for a while, sometimes it's easy to get into a rut, and you just have to keep driving yourself because the hunger could you know, disappear.
Yes.
You're in a position, you're not going anywhere. I'm not hungry. It could be dangerous.
Yeah, a lot of professionals will get complacent and they'll get apathetic and they'll settle for mediocrity. And I write about those things in the book too. And I like kind of contrasting excellence and mediocrity. And it's very easy to do.
Right.
And really the quick answer there is every day that I wake up, I try to work toward excellence. And that's my goal. And no matter how well the day goes, you still have to get up the next morning and do it again.
Right, right, right. It's a lifelong quest, I think, for all of us.
Absolutely.
And the landscape shifts as I'm getting old. I've gotten older. I've realized things that I could count on that would always be at my fingertips are not on my fingertips anymore. That I
Right.
have to work a little harder at certain things, and I've learned some little different tricks around things that to play it differently than I did 30 years ago.
That's right.
There's no fighting it. Paul, what have you seen as changes in the percussion world since you started at Clemson?
That's a great question. I actually asked the same question to Michael Balzer. I did an interview with
Hmm.
him for the new issue of Rhythm Scene, and
Hmm.
I agree with him. I think the talent level has skyrocketed. The skill, the technique is far more advanced, I think, than it used to be. And
Right.
even when I was in school, and but what Mike said too was the musicianship hasn't necessarily caught up with the skill and the technique. So we're always looking for music making and expression and communication and connection through the art form and through our craft. And I'm not sure if that's changed too much, but certainly the technical facility of marimbas, vibraphonists, and
Yeah.
certainly rudimental drummers and drum set players and hand drummers go down the list. It's been incredible.
I see some of these YouTube videos of the rudimental guys, and I never, other than high school, I never marched in a marching band, and I see some of these technical stuff with all the stick tricks. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable.
It is. Yeah, we're living in a YouTube generation for sure, where a lot of the students are becoming interested through those videos, and that's
Right.
fine, and they're getting interested, and hopefully they'll continue to study
the,
after
the,
that.
the danger with YouTube, as I discovered a number of years ago, I was conducting at an all-state convention, a percussion ensemble, and it was a piece I didn't know. I got the score, and I was looking around for recording, and I found a YouTube video of a college group playing it, and it was not good. I'm looking at the score, and there's stuff wrong, and I'm thinking, well, if a kid doesn't know and learns and watches YouTube, it's kind of like Wikipedia. You're taught not to use it as a reference because it's not exactly reliable. You don't know,
Right?
so it's got to be challenging. Then again, we had nothing when I was learning multi percussion. stuff. There were no recordings of it. You know, I couldn't hear it. I just had to learn it.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
I
a lot.
agree. That was tough when you didn't have any auditory feedback to help you learn the piece, but
But I
you did.
wonder if it was freeing in a way that I didn't feel I had to play it like the way I saw it.
Right.
I put my own stamp on it. Sometimes it was good. Sometimes, as Mr. Firth would say, it wasn't that good. But that's why I was going to school, you
That's
know.
right. Okay.
Um, and I remember the students used to play for each other. That's what we used to do and criticize each other, you know, constructively most of the time.
Right.
And I learned a lot by when I was freshman playing for the seniors and also the grad students. I just watching them do recitals really was eye opening.
I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah, yeah. Are there any things that concern you going forward that you'd like to see changed that you think can be as a community, as a percussion community, that maybe we need to change direction a little bit or reevaluate how we're doing things?
Well, I chaired the PAS Education Committee for 9 years, so I'm always looking at the quality of percussion education at all levels, especially the high school level.
Hmm.
As a college professor, I see a lot of students that lack some reading skills, and
Hmm.
not sight reading skills necessarily, but just general reading skills. So rests, rhythms, the ability to subdivide, play with the metronome, the ability to figure rhythms out, things like that. And I'm seeing that a lot of students are not listening to music very much. So
Really?
yeah, they're just they're very involved and engaged in band or orchestra or whatever they're in, but they're not listening critically. So they're not developing their skills as a listener and what I call ear chops.
Right, right.
So could be drum set players that are very talented, but they're not listening to music like they should. Could be timpanists. Just getting a steady diet of listening as part of their study, which is easier than ever today, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Um,
you got everything right here.
that's right, exactly.
Yeah, it's
And
amazing.
so, active listening, not passive listening while you're doing something else while you're listening, but, really paying attention, going to concerts and not just watching, but listening to the music and what's going on. And
Right,
that feeds you and that kind of gets into your system and it
right.
comes out in your playing, I find, if you do that on a regular basis.
Yeah. No, it's funny you talk about active listening. I have a lot of friends who are non-musicians, and they're constantly calling me, "Let's go to this concert. Let's go to that concert." And if it's a night off for me, I don't go to classical music concerts, and I can't do it. They're shocked by that. And I say, "Look, I'm an active listener. If I'm going to hear an orchestra play Beethoven 7, I can't just sit back and relax. I can't do it. You know, I mean, I could go to other things. I like to go to plays and shows, but it's hard for me to go to a classical concert."
I'm sure. Well, you're living it. You're
That's right.
trying
I
it
have
out.
to turn it off
Absolutely.
sometimes and
Yeah.
recharge. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Are there you mentioned the PAS Education Committee. So it's interesting to me that as the organization has grown and you know that the sharing of ideas, I really see the results of that over 30 years or so, since maybe even longer that I was going to PASIC and has been a member, and it's really impacted the field very positively, I think. And I don't think some of the other instrument groups have as close knit a community. At least that's what I'm hearing from brass players and wind players. And you know, when they find out we go for 3 days, I
Yeah.
mean, they can't believe it.
No, we've got something special for sure. I think there's a brotherhood and a fraternity and just a sharing of ideas and just a shared passion for
Right.
passion. And everybody's so authentic with each other at PASIC. And we just want to learn and we want to kind of feed off each other and get inspired every year.
Right, right, right. You know, it's funny. One thing that drives me a little nutty, and I see it all over now with the preponderance of equipment that's available and choices. And I shouldn't complain because I benefit from it as a manufacturer. But I go to a concert, and one of my colleagues has 8 pairs of Glock mallets out on a table, and he'll use them all in the course of a 2-hour concert. And I walk over and I'm playing, and I don't hear much difference at all. and and I'm wondering if we've gotten just a little too fixated on equipment. I mean, I'm a gearhead. I love equipment too, but at the point where it doesn't musically make sense, I wonder if it's something that we really need to start listening more and saying, it's better to have fewer tools, but know when to use them and use them creatively and have a full palette. But you never see an artist painting with 200 colors on his palette. I mean, they're mixing. So especially mallets, I mean, there's so many mallets and choices, and even marimbas. When I was coming up, there were two choices: Deegan, Musser.
Right.
Now there's some really really great choices out there.
It's overwhelming for the students, especially a freshman in college. Of what do they buy? What do they start out with? Because there's so many manufacturers, and so many hardnesses, and so many weights, so
Right,
many price points.
right,
Much more difficult to kind of steer them into a certain direction with all the
right.
choices and varieties they have.
It's funny. I was subbing in an orchestra in Florida for a week, and I brought some of my cymbals, and I'm playing, and one of the members of their section looked at it and saying, "Hey, that cymbal's marked suspended. You use it as a crash cymbal." I say, "Well, yeah, it's a great cymbal for the. I don't care what it's marked at a factory. They have certain standards and French, German, but I mean, I'm looking for something, and I don't care if it says hi-hats. If it sounds good, it sounds good. I think
Right.
sometimes we're forced as manufacturers to categorize. We do it with tambourines, I know. And
Yeah.
someone says, well, is this tambourine, which one's good for general purpose playing? And I say, almost every one we make. You know,
Yeah.
but we have to define German silver, these are the best choices for certain things. Otherwise, people could never make a choice, as you say.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the other things I think you mentioned percussion education and some things that I'm seeing. One of the phrases I always use with my students is it's not what you play, but how you sound that's most important. And I think a lot of the young kids, either through YouTube or other websites, through the repertoire, they're getting pretty consumed with what they play, meaning what pieces that they're playing and not how they sound. And that kind of goes back to Mike Balter's comment too on musicianship. But I think we have to really listen to how we sound on timpani, on tambourine, on snare drum, on vibes, on triangle, whatever it is, and not obsess so much with what part we're playing or what piece we're playing or whatever it is.
Right. To piggyback on that, Paul, when I was teaching privately, I would always talk to my students about invisible technique because we spend our whole lives building technique and chops. I still do it. I'm sitting with stick control this afternoon in front of the television. But when it comes to playing music, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear sticking. It should be invisible. It's all about the music.
I
And
like
I
that.
remember when I got out of school, was playing some uh, pieces for specifically for colleagues who were not percussionists, string players mostly, and getting feedback and Bach on the marimba or something. And they would ask me for things that if they knew the technical capabilities, they might not ask me. But the beauty is they didn't know and they didn't care. And all they cared about was the music. So I had to figure out a way around it and forget the technical stuff, save it for the practice room.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody tends to get stuck in the technique. It could be four mallets. It could be French grip versus German grip. It could be drum set, just their approach. But you're right. It's all about how you sound or how somebody sounds when they play.
Right. I remember Fred Hinger coming to Boston when I was a student, and I went to go see him, and he gave it like a little clinic, and it was the first time I ever saw anybody play a double stroke roll on timpani, very soft,
Huh.
and he talked
Right.
about using that, and everybody was like shocked by that. Oh, that's terrible. We're told never to do that, And Vic, of course, would never do that. But I thought about it. I said, I closed my eyes, and it had a certain texture to it.
Right.
So if you use it, why not?
Exactly.
Why not? Yeah, yeah. But it's like alternate sticking. We all practice and come up alternate sticking. My beginning mallet students, they'd have to alternate stick everything. And then I get to a point I say, now avoid alternate sticking because
Right.
it's not musical. And
Exactly.
they say, well, you've been telling me to do it. Well, forget everything I told you.
I agree completely.
Great. Paul, what things do you have coming up? Do you have any projects you're working on now?
Yes, actually, I'm actually writing my fourth book as
Oh,
we speak. It's called Marching Percussion Mindsets, and it's really a resource guide for instructors and players on all of the different areas that are involved in teaching a drum line. So there's a chapter on leading, on building a culture, on auditioning,
mhm.
arranging, tuning,
Uh,
rehearsing, practicing. All the work, all the chapters end in ing. So I came up with these kind of consistent themes, and I'm planning to ask several of the heavyweights in drum corps and WGI, college and high school, and even some of the sports, the football and NBA, NFL and NBA
wow.
drumline instructors to contribute and
Yeah.
answer questions. I
Cool.
think it could be really a wonderful resource for the marching arts and help out a lot of instructors and players.
And when do you anticipate that will be available?
I'm hoping 2020. I think after the summer, after the drum corps season is done, I'm going to reach out to the instructors and staff members and try to get that part of it. My part of it is getting there, but I'm
Mm,
about 75% finished with
mm.
my philosophies and some things that we do at Clemson that I think could help a lot of people. And I'm hoping the first part of 2020, Neil. Yeah,
Cool.
that's yeah.
Do you work with a book editor when you write a book? I mean, how does that work?
Sure. Well, Working Toward Excellence was published by a traditional publisher, Morgan James Publishing, and I did hire an editor for that, and she was highly recommended. And we communicated primarily via email and a few phone calls.
Hmm.
And it's funny because when I gave her the draft, I was very, very proud and confident that it couldn't be edited any better, and I was completely wrong. She was amazing, and she made it 10 times better than it was.
Oh, great.
And her fee was certainly worth the quality that the book that you read came out
Right.
to be.
Oh, great.
And so there's some recommendations with that. And then the publishing company worked on the design of the cover and sent me a lot of options with that. The size of the book, I always wanted to write a small book, something that was digestible and nothing too long where people weren't going to read it.
Right. And you mentioned that the Working Towards Excellence was published by traditional publisher.
Right.
Are the other books published in a different format or?
Yeah, so marching bands and drum lines, and then my most recent book, which is the Art of Vibraphone Playing, that I co-authored with Josh Gotry, were both published by Meredith Music and Gar Whaley,
Mhm.
and they do a tremendous job from cover design to print to paper quality, and they take care of all of those details for the authors, and it's an outstanding company, and
Yeah, Dar, I know Darn, he publishes a couple things I did. It's great. He's great. Yeah.
I just love the look and the feel of their books,
Right.
and trust Gar wholeheartedly, and
Yeah.
he was kind enough to accept both of those
Yeah.
books.
Yeah. Well, it's the way it is because it's Gar.
Right.
He's
Absolutely.
he's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, that sounds great. And so you have time to do all these things, teach, you're playing, you're a fan,
Um,
you're
yeah, I've got a 6-year-old son, and
and he
my
is
wife
one
and
of the
I.
cutest kids I've
Thank
ever.
you.
He's
Well,
unbelievable.
I'm glad he got to meet you, and he
Oh,
enjoyed the airplane gift
oh yeah, yeah,
that you
yeah.
gave him, and
Well,
yeah, I try to follow my own advice and be
yeah,
consistent with
yeah,
a lot of things. And I try to write 45 minutes to an hour a day in the morning when I'm fresh.
right.
I try to practice every day as much as I can. My teaching load is very full. I also serve as director of music at Clemson, so I oversee the music faculty and assist our
Oh,
chair.
wow, wow.
So it's very busy, but it's balanced.
And are you VP of PAS now, or are you?
I just stepped off as second vice president, and Julie Hill and I were just appointed as the co-editorial directors for Percussive Notes.
Oh, great. Oh,
We're going
good.
to be helping Rick Mattingly kind of revamp the publication and kind of take it to another level.
Okay, great. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
That's I know it's a volunteer position, and you're very kind to do that. So Paul, in conclusion, is there anything you wanted to say or talk about? I appreciate you spending some time with us after a long day, and I think I'm going to suggest to anybody who's watching this uh, to get working towards excellence because it doesn't matter what you do. The values are in the. There you go. How could they get the book? Could they get it on your website or on Amazon?
Amazon's probably the best place to get it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I also have copies here at home in some boxes if someone wants to reach out
Well, if they
personally.
wanted to sign it, they could
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
contact you through the university on a website or paulbuyer.com. Is that your
Yeah,
web?
yeah, it is. paulbuyer.com, and all my contact information is on there.
Great. Now, one little piece of trivia that no one knows, but I know that you and Mike Balter are related.
Yes, Mike is my second cousin
Uh-huh.
and was my first teacher. I took lessons with him when I was in high school, and I used to drive up about an hour from my home in Indiana to Northbrook, Illinois, where his house was. And
Right.
he'd give me an hour lesson, and it was life changing. And he was real hard on me, but it
Yeah.
made a huge difference, helped me get into Ball State. And
Uh-huh.
he's been a true mentor for me for a long time.
Oh, great. Well, he's a great friend of mine, and I'm thrilled that his company is now found a home with Zildjian, another great company.
Yeah.
I think it worked out great for everybody.
Yeah.
Paul, give my best to your family. Thanks so much for spending time with us. I appreciate it, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Neil, for having me. Really appreciate it. And good luck with the podcast.
Great. Thanks a lot,
Okay.
Paul. Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Good night.